on serving students at a distance, hopefully next week. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the FAQ piece of it, or out of the FAQ. But it's a good question, Irene. I hear where you're coming from, but we have not yet found a solution to that we feel confident in right now. So back to the top of this FAQ, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on some of the other areas. We had lots of questions on distance education, and we have gone through and answered many of those. Remote learning, also that's section 5. So go through and come through that. We wanted to really provide this information in a very detailed way. We've had several calls about it this week, but we've kind of entered this new world where we're splitting remote learning and distance learning into 2 different modalities of instruction. And the remote learning seems to be a very high growth area. So there's some questions in there. Make sure you dig in and read those so you can find out where you stand in terms of compliance and where we stand in terms of putting things together for guidance. So on the question of, yes.
There's another comment, and I think this is also addressed in the FAQ, but this is from Janine, and it says some of our providers are looking for specific written guidance on paying part-time staff that cannot work during this time.
Okay, for staff that cannot work during this time? Okay, that question under the fiscal and grant questions, paying staff is the first question. That is going to answer their questions. And I think you will find quite a bit of detailed guidance there, and it'll essentially, the bottom line is if your institutions have policies to pay staff during emergency times or extenuating circumstances, that is an allowable cost. And if you read through anyone's answer there, you'll find quite a bit of detail to substantiate that, as well as a bit of references to the uniform guidance that your finance and payroll people can refer to, because they're most likely going to need backup documentation for a lot of this. So if you read some of these questions and you think, oh my gosh, this is a very technical, it is, because we wanted to make sure that your finance department had the documentation they need to cut payroll and to advise their boards of trustees and superintendents and chancellors and otherwise CEO type figures that they're doing things correctly. And if you have questions,
and there's another question
on that, carry them on. Yes.
What considerations do we have when distributing resources with respect to public charge?
Okay, so I don't know if we have any guidance on that. I like that question, though. If you want to submit that question to the AELTA address, AELTA@twc.state.tx.us, we'd be happy to turn a question around for you. Next question. Any more?
I'm checking at this time. There's a lot of comments,
okay.
But no questions at this time.
Okay, and I'm not able to see the chat questions for some reason. I don't know what I'm
Liz,
doing.
why don't you share some of those comments also?
I'd like to just see them, because it helps me as I go through here. I kind of think of things in phases sometimes, and I think right now we're in the middle of kind of this distance remote learning phase of transition, and it's tremendous. We have done an amazing amount in like 4 or 5 days by any measure. I'm forecasting that it's already started, but the next big phase we're going to be entering in is a phase that is going to be focused on how do we bring in new students in this environment. It started, days ago. People already had wait lists of students that were going to come back after spring break. I know Houston Community College, I think, had 200 students ready to go. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. And they want to serve those students. Those students are looking to transform their lives through adult education and literacy. So we have worked up some guidance that is in draft right now under review. And the idea is that we are going to continue to serve students. I want to keep going with students, and we are going to have to change a lot of the things that are in our DNA in terms of intake. But Mahalia Baldini on my team and myself put together some guidance. My staff is looking at it now. I sent it this morning to some practitioners out there that are on this call that have been the most active, I think, in asking questions about this and providing ideas just to get a sense of, are we on the right track? And I suspect that by early next week, we will probably have some guidance out to you on how to do an intake for a student remotely, how to determine eligibility when you cannot test a student, how to document information. And my message right now is if the students are calling you, if they're going to your website and asking to sign up, get that wait list going and be ready. And be ready to make sure that your staff is ready to start taking on new students, because I think we're going to pivot pretty quickly here, and I think that's going to be a very powerful phase for us in terms of kind of turning a corner here and keeping our students going, but also make sure that we're bringing on new students. So I'm really encouraged by it, but it's going to really cause us to have to think out of the box. And I want y'all to be patient. Go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's lots of comments being posted in the chat at this time. And one of the comments is from Dr. Olga Escamilla regarding remote testing. And she mentions that maybe someone can communicate with Examity. They do online proctoring for AccuPlacer and TSIA for a fee, of course. She also added, Karen Cook added that there is also U-proctoring that ACC is moving toward with TSI.
Mm-hmm.
We have another comment.
Thank you, Olga and Karen. Examity I knew about through the TSIA, and I have not heard, because I think those are being done through the College Board, actually. I don't know if that's been a discussion that's been happening with TABE yet or not. That's one of the questions actually I have out there. Like I covered this with TSIA last week. So let's put a bookmark on that and see if we can get an answer to that. That's probably the main way we could do this. I would like to see those things offered actually first for high school fluency for the GED testing service and ETS.
And we also have another comment regarding pay. And this is, although we would love to pay everyone, doesn't seem right to pay everyone across the board when some teachers chose not to teach remotely.
I think read the question and the answer that's in the FAQ, but I think that's largely when it gets to that situation where someone essentially doesn't want to do the work, I think the local institution has to make a decision about how best to address that. But check the question and answer and document that, and then I'll actually craft that into a question to send to our finance department. If one of my staff is on, please let's write that one down. Related to what if staff refuse to do remote learning, do they still have to pay them, or what kind of decision making is on a situation like that? That would be a good question to add to our FAQ. Thank you for whoever asked that.
There's another one. This is from Christina Robinson. So if students did not complete testing process, they cannot start based on new guidance.
So if a student, well, the new guidance hasn't been released yet. So I see Christina's question. So if students did not complete the testing process, they cannot start based on new guidance. No, that's not what I said. Our goal is to continue serving students, even if they do not have a test. And we are coming out with, we're going to have a reporting model for you, a spreadsheet model that you can start to collect these students on, and a process, because teams, as you know, doesn't behave very well, if you don't put a test in for a student, you can't do much. So we're going to be running off of a very different model in terms of intaking the students. And we want to try to build it at the beginning, which is why we're delaying a little bit here. I wouldn't say we're delaying, we're just thinking it through. But we want to build a model that when the dust clouds and the storm clouds lift, we don't have a big mess for us to clean up, but we actually have something that we can manage and transition back into normal services from. So students are still going to be able to be served. The way you're going to be doing the data entry and things like that is going to be a lot different on multiple fronts. So look for us to provide more feedback. I don't think we're going to get it right immediately. We are going to get it really good, and we're going to send it out, and then you guys are going to help us get it great, just like you did this week with remote learning. 2 weeks ago, folks, we could even find remote learning probably hardly. Now we have guidance on it, we have feedback, we have it happening all over the state in large numbers, and it's because you guys engaged and asked questions and helped us all grow. We're going to do the same thing about serving students and new students.
We
Any
have
other
another
questions?
question. Yes, this says, does that mean we should not recruit new students?
No, I would say continue to recruit. I think if you've got the bandwidth right now, I would not let up on recruitment because you may have staff that can't teach remotely, don't want to teach remotely, that's not a skill set, but if they want to keep, fielding phone calls and keep promoting your classes and getting your website up there, think about it this way. You've got 3 million people in America that became unemployed this week. A large amount of those people are in Texas. Many of them are low skill. They are looking for the next phase of their life and their career. It's us. It is adult ed for many of those individuals. So we want to think about how to bring them in. We want to think about what your websites look like and say. Is it inviting? Are you saying, come on in, the door is open. Do you have ways to have orientations at a distance? Think that through because I think you're going to have people really looking for hope and looking for classes. And I know some of y'all are already doing it out there. So I would not stop anything you're doing in terms of recruitment. You might need to be putting those resources to building your infrastructure to take on students at a distance. And you're going to learn some stuff from us next week on what those processes will look like. Yeah, I want to keep us moving because there are a lot of things right now that are shut down completely and students don't have access. But they're sitting at home and they're looking for something to do productive, and that's through adult ed for sure.
Then there's a comment from Denise Aran, and this says, I agree that we cannot pay people who are choosing not to work or no longer qualified for what the position requires. Our college called an emergency board meeting for guidance. There may be some things those not wanting to work remotely can do, but we can't have some replacing them getting paid while they get paid to not do it, at least not in our program.
Okay.
And then
yeah.
Irene, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Irene, as Region 2 already wanted to increase the remote learning offerings, and this has hastened the task for us, and we have 20 virtual remote classes up and running with plans to keep ramping up as the need arises. And a separate comment says, if we recruit them and enroll them but can't obtain all the registration info, will that be acceptable Social Security number and testing? Let me see. Let me read that again. If we recruit them and enroll them but can't obtain all the registration info, and then it says, will that we accept, I guess, the Social Security number and testing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that question is going to be addressed next week, but essentially we're going to be providing you guidance on how to do intake, enrollment, and collect information, knowing that you can't test them, knowing that you're still going to need to be hyper vigilant on PII, things like that. So we're getting questions about can we use scanned documentation? Can we use pictures for this? Can we do this and that? We're building that into our guidance. But the idea is that there's going to be this subset of new students coming in that are going to lack certain information. And you're going to still be able to serve them, bring them in. You're going to have difficulties ascertaining their levels because you're not going to be able to test them right now, at least. But we want you to keep serving them. We want to be providing that access. And then once the schools open and once things settle into normalcy, you'll be able to pick up the testing scores. You'll be able to pick up things. And Adam Leonard in our performance department is aware that we're doing this. You can imagine, and he briefed our commissioners in depth yesterday about the impacts that this is going to have on performance on all of the programs at TWC, especially hard hit is adult ed, since almost a huge portion of our performance is proctor-based testing and high school equivalency testing. So that activity is just not happening right now. My worry is, and this is where you've got to really think ahead in terms of behaviors and your institutions, but we are also moving into the spring and then the summer. These are naturally times that get really soft for us in terms of student participation and in the summer, local closures. So I think all those things need to be rethought because we're essentially going to lose a month or two of our winter and early spring, and hopefully we can push the engagement and the activity into the late spring and into the fall, and into the summer and into the fall, and keep a good head of steam going as we build in for next year. I mean, that's not going to happen for everybody, but part of the reason earlier I was saying I thought it was paramount that we bring in new students is we're going to lose a lot of students. There's a lot of students that don't want to, can't enjoy remote learning. They don't have the access. They have one computer. 4 kids are using it to do their own homework. We're going to lose students, and that's difficult. And so replenishing with new students, I think, is also going to be very important for us. But I think we're going to come out of this with an amazing story of continuity, largely due to the efforts of you guys. Other questions?
Yes, lots of questions and comments. So here's another question. This one is from Alex Ripley. This question is regarding remote classroom hours. What are the guidelines? Many students are parents and have to help their children with their schoolwork at home. Same class schedules might not work, but schedules are set in teams. To keep attendance data entry clean, what can we do? This class schedule does not work for many students.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm seeing the question now from Alex. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a difficult one. This is basically the situation I keep hearing about, which is happening in my house too, which is we've only got a computer, and 3 or 4 people have to use it, and my class is at 2 o'clock, and I can't get the computer. What do I do? Those situations are going to happen. That's the new normal for many people, including myself. And I think it's up to local programs to find ways to do things off hours. Do things those students can still do distance learning and capture proxy hours if they can't do a direct hour remote learning option. Look at the FAQ for guidance on those things if you're unclear about remote learning and distance learning. But we're going to have to get creative in these situations because we've got these real constraints.
So we have another question. This one's from Sandra Cortez. It says, can we have IETs online that do not lead to an industry-recognized credential?
I've seen some of these questions come through, and I think if you, we haven't released much guidance on IET yet. My response to that question is send in the question to aelta@twc.state.tx.us and let us answer it. But I think we want to be flexible on these fully online training courses because that is going to help people get into careers. So I'm giving a tentative okay for that right now, but I want to learn more because we want to build the guidance around it also. Because IET is getting particularly slammed because most training courses, especially in the industries that our students seem to enjoy, have hands-on practicum experiences that just are not happening right now. But there is stuff that can be done remotely.
So a couple of more items. Letty Sanchez from Region 1 has just shared webinar slides that she had participated in regarding public charge. So those have been added into the chat pod. So thank you, Letty.
Okay.
And also we have a comment from Michelle Lehman saying the idea to co-teach and pair more tech savvy with less is great. My organization has allowed me to work part-time staff extra hours. Knowing the reobligation, deobligation information would allow to plan financially. When will we have the deob, reob information be provided? And then Kathy Dowdy seconds that.
Comments from some of our great colleagues out there. So let me pivot out of the FAQ and back to the main agenda. Keep the questions coming, and we're going to run this call as long as we need to until the lights go out. I want to talk about the funding pieces right now in terms of what we're doing at the agency. We've had a lot of questions, and I probably moved around on this agenda some, but that's okay. We've had a lot of questions on funding, and I've been asking you a lot of questions on funding, and I want you to, I think your question that you answered 2 weeks ago or a week ago might change this week or next week. Keep us up to date. We have a situation where some individuals fear that they're going to run out of funding because their expenditures, contrary to kind of what many people kind of thought would happen, which means the expenditures would really take a hit because teachers weren't teaching. What we've seen is a lot of people are saying, well, our expenses are actually going up because we're moving to remote learning. That costs more. We're filming classes. We're buying more licenses of this, that, and the other. And then certain institutions are also paying individuals more. They're paying time and a half or part-time because that's board policy. So I've been signaling this straight up to the top at TWC. We're in the development. Fabiana Ramirez is helping me out with some others to present to our commissioners a variety of funding options that can be executed immediately, and then some that might take a few months. The reobligation, the deobligation and reallocation of funding, reobligation discussions that have been going on since December have continued. And we, the board and adult education literacy staff at TWC, the grant staff, they are reaching out to the grantees to determine funding needs specifically, because what you might have told them 3 weeks ago has probably changed dramatically. Look for that phone call to come your way. But we have some ideas that we're going to be bringing to our commissioners shortly here, and the idea is to give you guys what you need to keep things moving. So stay tuned. I know you want answers immediately. We, at the end of the day, take a little bit of sausage making to get the answer out to you and get it decided in a very transparent way for the public. So it's coming, and I'm real thrilled with the receptiveness that we have. And we have, you can imagine at TWC, tremendous amount of effort going towards funding. Yesterday, the commission approved, I think, $40 million for childcare. So there's a lot of efforts going on out there at the agency. Other questions?
Yes, and you might have answered this. This is from Ashley Krause, and it says, when we know more about the target expectations, when will we know more about the target expectations? Will we be given these new circumstances? We will contract everyone eligible for a reobligation to determine if the same fund can be accepted. And then we had, it said, if the reob changes, how long before we get it? and then reobligation hasn't been approved by commission, it will be an amendment, so between 30 to 60 days. Anson is currently reviewing all of our remedies for that.
Yes,
so
thank
lots
you.
Of comments.
Yeah, thank you for the, well, yeah, let's try not to miss any too. I'm glad you're going through them all.
Yes.
Yeah, we're looking at all remedies. So some of these, there's essentially 4 or 5 things that we are throwing at this immediately. Some of them will be fall under the category of the reob-deob. Most of them do not, actually. They will be released that we'll be able to bring to everybody. So that's something that I want to make sure that, you know, the environment is just turned upside down, and people's physical environments are shifting quickly. Nobody on this call has a good sense of really where it is right now, but you know it's changing, and many of you are saying it's probably getting more expensive. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. But you make sure that I know, and that means you ask me directly, or you send it into your program support specialist or into our AEL TA information. I see Gracie out there in Brazos. We had a question on Accelerate Texas. Thank you, Gracie. We are equally working the front line on the discretionary grants, Accelerate Texas, distance learning, ability to benefit. We're evaluating those in terms of possible extensions that would be needed, and then applying a lot of the same concepts in terms of funding that we're thinking about for the core grant. If you are an Accelerate Texas or ability to benefit grantee, get your question probably straight through to Ann Sabino. She seems to be getting up about 5:30 in the morning with me, and we can get those things kind of addressed early. But I'm not wanting to leave out our discretionary project grants because they bring a lot of life to us, and they're great providers. So we're thinking about you too, these things. That question earlier on performance, we are not going to know anything definite in terms of targets and all of that stuff for quite a bit now. Adam told me we're in a holding pattern, and we are making notes, and he briefed the commissioners yesterday that essentially this is going to be hyper disruptive to performance across all programs. So I don't want you to get upset with thinking of worrying about your performance. There's not much you can do about it right now. There's nothing we can do about a remedy because we're still doing the analysis, and we're still in the middle of everything. So we haven't heard anything from the Department of Ed, although the timing is good because we're in our federal renegotiation and negotiation of targets at the federal level right now. We have a conference call coming up next week, I believe, on that. Surely we'll hear some news from them, but I'm sure the federal government is still trying to figure a lot of this out also. Other questions?
I think you answered them because they were on the negotiation targets and when they would be notified about deobligation. So.
Yeah. Yes, 5:30, Liz, is when we get up. Yes.
Okay, we're getting more questions.
Right.
Are you still going to deobligate programs?
Well, that's part of where we're doing the analysis. So the idea is still that we would be deobligating certain programs, but the amounts and all of that, we're really revisiting everything because the calculations of everything have changed. So we're going to be very thoughtful, collaborative, and transparent in that process, and we're going to make sure we do it right. So don't get too worried about it yet. We're just beginning that discussion because everything kind of just turned around upside down for us in terms of that model. So Ashley's been answering emails in the chat, and she's going to be one of the ones working full steam on that as we move into end of this week, next week. Let me go through to make sure we're not missing anything in our agenda here. Any other questions before we kind of move on? I'm looking through the chat myself.
No, only one about if there'll be a transcript about the call, and so we'll provide additional information shortly about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I see that we are recording it, so that's good. T-Call's been great about that, and paying extra for quick turnaround and transcription and closed captioning and putting it up on YouTube. So I really appreciate that, because that might be something good to do at 5:30 in the morning. We missed everything else. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to kind of to switch topics from COVID-19, which we might need a break, and make sure everybody's giving yourself a mental health break. We're trying to do that in my team occasionally by just having fun sharing things, but it is stressful, and you lose your productivity if you overwork and overworry, for sure. So, Holly, if you're on, I know we had...
So before you leave,
yeah.
Can you answer one more question? This is from Michelle Lemon saying, yesterday's MSG report reflected negotiation targets. Does this mean renegotiation tools were accepted?
These are this would have been the renegotiated target. Yes, those were approved by the commission a couple weeks ago, actually, and you should have gotten a notification about that, Michelle. But we took to the commission and renegotiated targets. Adam did. I can't remember what date that was. Mahalia may remember that. But Mahalia, if you're on, if you could speak to that, that would be nice. Or probably Yana, I can't remember what commission date that was. And then we can talk about Teams 4.9 release.
They may have to. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So yes, the renegotiated target. So we only had a little over a handful of you guys that took that up as an option back in January, and the targets were accepted. So when you see the new performance reports that went out via Anson yesterday, in the transmittal, it will include those updated renegotiated targets for those of you that went through that process. So yes, those are all current. Moving on, I just had a couple of items here in the business. With everything that we have going on, I know it's going to be really easy to kind of overlook the last Teams release that came out. But we did go ahead and deploy the Teams 4.9 release, so you do have a new MSG management report available in Teams right now. For those of you who have not checked that out, that is going to be on the reports path. If you go under participants, it's in the same location where the POP report currently sits. It'll just say MSG management report. So the full release notes went out in an email along with this biweekly call agenda. We've sent it out through distribution list through Train PD. We've sent it out through the program specialist. So sorry if this is the third or fourth time that you're getting that information. We just want to be diligent about getting it out there. A little bit about this report in terms of training that I'm going to be doing. I have went back and forth. I know you guys got a ton of stuff going on, and maybe this is the last thing, on your minds right now. I'm going to be doing some internal training for the month, for the rest of this month, and then probably halfway through April, just for my staff. My plan is to then do a recorded webinar for just to kind of go over the functionality of the report, and then probably moving into May or later on after some settling happens and we get some better processes and people are just feeling more comfortable about the virtual learning and remote learning and distance learning, we'll come back to this and I'll do some live webinars so that you guys have a chance to really utilize the report, develop any questions that you have. It's going to be a really great, very useful tool for us moving forward. So even though there's all this stuff going on right now, it's out there. The next thing, we've gotten a lot of questions on the monthly validation and the data sign-off, so I wanted to kind of tell you where we are on that. What I can tell you for sure is that we will be extending that April 15th date for the March monthly validation as well as the data sign-off. I just don't know yet in terms of how long that extension is going to last or what we're going to kick that date back to. So if that eases everybody's mind, just to know that that's something that we're looking at, and it's not going to be April 15th. We're just trying to figure out exactly what we want to do there. And of course, we work very closely with our Department of Operational Insight on all of this. So we just want to make sure that we're, being very thoughtful in that decision. Any questions on either one of those items?
No
and you guys
questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, perfect. The other thing I just wanted to bring up was planned gaps. So I know that some of you, obviously not everyone's going to be able to go to a virtual or remote learning as an option for all of your current students. So I wanted to bring up the option of planned gap and kind of walk everybody through that option that's available currently in Teams. You can do it. It's a policy and an option for students who are not going to be able to come to class due to this emergency situation that we're in. And the way that the planned gap works is it's something that you have to literally go into Teams on each participant every single month and enter this planned gap. But what it basically does is it kind of suspends them in the system, and it doesn't make them exit. So if you have individuals that are not going to be getting direct or proxy or training hours over the next 90 days, then it's an option for you to go in there and utilize the planned gap. So the way that works is it has to be no participation over the next 90 days, but then you can extend it all the way out to 180 days. So depending on how long it kind of takes us to get back to business as usual, I just wanted to throw it out there as an option. If you're looking for some guidance on how the planned gap works, the AEL letter you will want to reference is AEL letter 0119. And if somebody could throw that link up into the chat pod, that would be great. You could just Google AEL letter 0119 and the web URL for that should pop right up for you. But there's some good information on there for that if you guys want to utilize that as an option for students that just aren't returning to services right now. So any question on any of those items, I'm happy to answer. And another thing I wanted to bring up while y'all are thinking through that, and Anson was really going over this new student enrollment guidance that's going to be coming out soon. I wanted to expand on that. So we are also working with Christine Long here at TWC. She's a great resource for us here. She helps us to kind of develop, Excel reports. She's helping us with the high school equivalency voucher tracking system. I have asked her to collaborate with me on what I'm just, for lack of a better term, a minimum requirements for new student tracking. And it's not that you guys can't add additional features or functions to this template that we're going to send out. It's just basically we're building this new student tracker just strictly based on the guidance that we're giving you. So we are going to be providing you at least with a template, so you'll have something that you can use to track all your new students on that are not going to be able to put contact hours in Teams. The other thing that we will also be providing guidance on is the tracking of your hours through your virtual or your remote learning classes and your distance learning classes. And the reason for that is that Teams currently has an import feature that many of you know about. So I want to make sure that when you're tracking this stuff right now, that you're doing it in such a way that at the end of this, you should be able just to import those hours into Teams once we, can build those classes for new students and things like that. So we've got to work through a couple of things. The guidance may come out first and the trackers may come out a little later depending on how Anson wants to roll that out. But it is something that we're working on. So that is what I have. Any questions for me before we go back to the agenda?
I'm monitoring the chat pod. There isn't anything there, Mahalia.
Perfect. So Anson, we can, I think, move on to some professional development that's coming up.
Okay. As the TV people get ready, I'll say a couple of things. One, for Michelle Lamons and others, the targets were approved March 3rd. Fabiana dug that up while you were talking, Mahalia. And and I have it in my inbox. I saw it Monday before all this got nutty. But we're revising AEL letter 0120, which is the target letter. So hopefully we'll get that out. If I can find 5 minutes, I can go proofread it and make sure it looks good. But yeah, we'll get those new targets out there. The other thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know if this question got into the latest FAQ. I think it might have, but we are in terms of cash draw. No one's going to get locked out of a cash draw if you're late on a report or something because you can't get to the office. So if the finance people are wondering about that, I'll let them know that there's some relief in that. And if that question did not get into the FAQ this time, we'll make sure it gets in next time. Okay, let's hand it over to the Train PD folks to go through some of the professional development items there.
Hi, Anson. This is Beth Ponder. Thank you again. So I put more on your agenda than I normally do because I wanted to include some of the things that we have happening right now for your instructors. And on the agenda, the first two things are happening today. This morning, Glenda Rose did a session for instructors on engaging students in online learning. And then there's one this afternoon on overview of Zoom as a virtual classroom tool. Both of those were full at 200 people. So we're thrilled to have so many instructors interested in these topics. So we're going to repeat them. So I went ahead and created a slide because this is just changing every day. But we're going to repeat the one with Dr. Rose tomorrow at 9. Then we're going to do one at 2 o'clock tomorrow and then 2 o'clock on Monday on using WebEx as a virtual classroom. And then we're going to repeat the Zoom one on Tuesday. And then I have a couple of other ones that were kind of in the planning process that would be next Wednesday and Thursday. Again, we do them twice to meet the needs of as many instructors as we can. One is on using a flipped classroom approach to online learning, and the other one is on creating and using effective video. So just want to give you an idea of what's coming up. There's some other things that are on your agenda, but I won't go over all of them. I know we've already are kind of at time. I will mention the census webinar, and I will talk to, which is going to be on the 7th, and I will talk to our presenter. Maybe she can kind of update us on, because I know some things are changing with how they're approaching the census. And I did want you to know that the Technology and Distance Learning Symposium that was supposed to be May 1st has been postponed. And also we have a couple of training of trainer events that are on the calendar that we're working with trainers on creating virtual TOTs. So that's kind of what we have. Anson, back to you.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been a super busy call and week. Have other questions coming up and kind of looking at some other stuff while getting prepared here.
No, it's just everyone's doing roll call once again.
Okay. Thank you for doing the roll call. I really appreciate everybody's feedback and really spend some time. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like at the local level. You're just running around like crazy, probably in your living room or in your bedroom or on the back porch like I am right now. If you hear the birds, those are probably mine outside, not in my house. But I appreciate everybody's work on this, and we will, but take some time to read through that FAQ. It's dense, and as you go through it, you know, maybe do it on a phone call with other colleagues, but your finance people will definitely find a lot of information there extremely critical. So make sure they get it today because they're dealing with dramatic changes in payroll and all of that and need to be responsive to their CEOs. So hopefully we've brought some of the answers that will help them move forward. If they have more questions, please get them over to us. No more questions. If not, I am going to start winding things down.
I don't
And
see
I'm
any
going to
more.
just
With that, we will let you guys go, and we got 200 plus people on this. Sorry that some of y'all had a hard time getting in. We are increasing the licenses for our web because of this, but we'll get a audio recording of it out there if you didn't hear the first few minutes of it or missed some of it. And have a great weekend if I don't hear from you, but don't hesitate to reach out. I'm out here. My team is out here, and they're doing a phenomenal job, and we're all here to help. So thank you very much, and signing off here from San Antonio.
All right. Thank you, everyone.